And now, it's BoomerLife, lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is BoomerLife on CIL 650.
Something tells me I'm into something good. Something tells me I'm into
Hey, and welcome to the show. I'm Zach Spencer on BoomerLife, and today we're talking about an amazing company known as ElementLifestyle Retirement, and a very special project that is in the pre-sale process. And I walked by the other day, and you're getting set for construction. It's very exciting. We're honored to have back on the show Candy Ho. Thank you for coming back. Candy is the Director and Vice President, Marketing and Corporate Relations with ElementLifestyle Retirement. And also joining us in studio is Maili Wong. Before we get into Maili's story, you're going to be doing a lot of talking during this show because we have a very interesting concept today, and I think people are going to really like it. It's about lifestyle and retirement, and also about the financial way that you can get there, right? Make your retirement successful and happy and relaxed. But let's get into OPAL by Element. It's at King Edward and Cambie.
Yes.
And it's in pre-sale mode. As I mentioned, you've just started construction. You're going to be started construction shortly. So give us a sort of 30,000-foot view of what it is and when it's going to be coming online.
Okay, so it is very different than any other retirement home or senior home in that we do provide all of the hospitality and support and nursing care, but it is not a place where you're surrounded by seniors, because we make it an intergenerational model where all ages are welcome and all family are not only just said to be welcomed, but every aspect of programming and activities are designed to encourage the children to come and create purposeful life where the seniors, whether they have grandchildren or not, have the opportunity to pass on their legacy of character, wisdom, and skills and values to younger people who are our future. So instead of being in an environment where the energy is a little bit depressing and they're constantly conscious of aging, they're surrounded still by all ages, as they would be if they were out in the community in their own home going about. And we create lots of opportunity for great bonding experiences between all ages, and they get to be connected to their meaningful relationships that have always mattered to them in their life. So it's instead of an average age of 87, right now I have an average age of probably 70 or possibly even under now, because I have adult children in their 50s and 60s purchasing for themselves with room for their children to stay as guests or even long-term, purchasing a separate unit for mom and then reserving a care unit for dad. And it's happening with every unit that I've sold. It's been in multiples because family are purchasing together to be together, to live in the same space.
So this has been your goal, is to promote this idea of having, instead of shuttering the parents off on their own, to have communication and contact with the younger generations. And you've been preaching this about this lifestyle. Is the message getting out? Do you think people are getting it?
Absolutely. It's every day that I'm at the center, which is 7 days a week since we've been opening.
Oh, where is the center, by the way, if you want to find out more?
It's at City Square, 12th and Cambie, right below Kirin Restaurant at the corner of 12th and Cambie. But every day I have many, many families coming in, 3 or 4 families at a time, and they're really coming together as 13, 15 people together through all the generations. And it's really encouraging for me to see that, my belief that humanity is good. People do care about their family as much as they may not be able to spend a lot of time as much as they wish. They do still all care about each other, and I see it in all the cultures that are coming through. Okay, now
when is the target to have the complex completed?
2019, the first half of the year.
So 2 years from now, basically.
Yes, yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.
All right, so if in order to get a family to sort of have this cohesive lifestyle at OPAL by Element, it takes some planning, right?
Yes.
Financially, especially. Yes. So joining us also is Maili Wong, who has a great history and story in financial planning, and we're going to get into a little bit about it. You're Vice President, Investment Advisor, Portfolio Manager at CIBC Wood Gundy, 15 years of international investment experience, including 5 years in New York City, and you help manage over $5 billion in assets for a global investment fund. So welcome to the show. That's quite an intro.
Thank you, Zach. It's great to be here.
Now, we also want to talk a little bit. to give a little bit of human perspective to, being at the top level, investing and looking at a portfolio, looking after and managing money. You were in New York City, and you were in New York City on 9/11. And how close were you on that fateful day?
Well, it gives me chills to think back to that day. But I was actually in the building connected to the World Trade Center.
Wow, because it's a whole complex, right, of
it is.
Financial buildings that were there.
Yes. So we were in the North Tower, which is connected to the second tower that fell through a series of walkways. And it was actually my second day on the job.
Wow.
Working on the trading floor at Merrill Lynch, a major institution. And it was around 8:30 when the first plane struck the building. And I was just coming out of a morning meeting, and I remember feeling the shake, and my coffee just spilled all over my hand and my clothes, and I thought, what's happening? And I looked around, and there was some fear and confusion as everyone looked up at the big television screens.
Did you have windows in that complex? No. Are you in?
The windows were very high up, so we couldn't see outside, but we could see the news being reported on the television screens throughout the trading floor.
Oh my gosh, right next to you. You're looking at
Yeah. And I asked one of the fellow traders, what happened? And he said, it looks like some idiot must have flown a small Cessna into the side of the World Trade Center. He must have been drunk.
Well, I have an interesting perspective from the other side of the continent. I was working at Global BCTV doing the morning news, and our show started at 5:30 in the morning, which was 8:30 New York time, and I walked off the set to go into the newsroom, and I saw CNN had a picture of the building with a hole in the top. And I thought to myself, somebody's flown a Cessna into the side of the building. We had no idea. And so I had the same impression, because everybody had no idea, because people don't realize each one of those floors was an acre.
That's right.
It's a massive structure. So anyway, pick up the story. I thought I'd just tell you that. Side note, yeah. That's what we thought too.
Yep, and that was what was being reported at the time. And to put it in context, we weren't expecting terrorism back then, right? And so everyone started to lose interest after a few minutes and went back to the desk. And I remember feeling the pressure to also go back to my desk. But about 10 minutes later, the second plane hit. And this time, it was as if a massive earthquake struck right beneath my feet. And everything shook. And that was the one that struck the building connected to us. And I remember at the time, our managers were saying, stay put, everyone. Don't go anywhere. Market's going to open up in about 45 minutes. So let's get ready for the stock markets to open. If you do leave the building, don't go very far. And so I've really struggled with what to do. Do I sort of take the safe path and stay close to the office because our managers are telling us stay put and follow orders? Or do I
use your judgment?
Use my judgment to take a bit of a step outside the proverbial box and get out of that building? And that's what I decided to do.
And what did you see when you left?
When I left the building, one of my colleagues started screaming. And I put my hand on her shoulder and I asked her, what's wrong? And she told me that she had just seen two people falling from the World Trade Center holding hands, and they were on fire.
Oh my gosh, I really am getting chills the whole time you're telling this.
So that image.
Did you run?
Yeah, I just found myself running. And myself and a few colleagues ended up running up the West Side Highway, which is the busiest street on the western side of Manhattan.
Yeah.
And just running as far away from the burning towers as we could. And it was a really strange and scary feeling because it hit me that I didn't know where to run to safety. At that moment, when the buildings were starting to crumble, the thought of being under attack kind of pervaded all of our senses. So we didn't know that if
something else was coming.
If something else was coming, if we ran too far north, maybe the Empire State Building would be next. So, it was a really terrifying and horrifying experience, especially, as seeing all the chaos and people running around and screaming and not knowing where to go. And, strange things like seeing every ATM tapped out of cash and no taxis or transportation, no subways, nothing to get you anywhere.
Yeah, people walked over all the major bridges to get back to the suburbs, right? And so when that happened, you just stay in place at one? You just go. I mean, you just go up the island a little bit and sort of hang out there and wait to see what happened. Were you covered by the ashes and the debris?
Yes, I was covered by a lot of those ashes and debris, and I remember sort of wandering, not somewhat aimlessly, not knowing where to go, and just deciding within myself that either I could crumble up in the street corner here and wait for the inevitable to happen, or succumb to whatever risks might fall. But then that image of those burning people falling from the tower flashed before my eyes, and I realized I was very grateful and lucky to be alive and to have, gotten through that initial crumbling of the towers. So in the moments that followed, I sort of had to make a decision and decided, you know what, I've been so fortunate that I really owe it to the forces that be that gave me the opportunity to survive, to actually do everything I can to, put one foot in front of the other and just find a way forward. Mm-hmm. And then from that moment on, I mustered up the courage and I stood up, and my feet were blistered from running in high heels and, from all the glass that had fallen onto the floor, and yet, one foot in front of the other, until fortunately by around dusk, early evening, I ran into a colleague. And he said, Maili, why don't you come and check your messages? You probably need to get in touch with your family. And that was the first thing that I wanted to do, was be able to call home and tell them that I was okay. It had been almost 12 hours since I was last in touch with them. And for any of you with family, you can only imagine. And
had you just moved to New York?
I had just moved to New York.
So that must have been terrifying for your family. You were new in a big city like that, and this happened at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now having children of my own, I can only imagine how my mother and father felt during that day as they were receiving calls. What
happened to that trading floor?
So that trading floor, well, it was right in the heart of Ground Zero. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of went under this state where no one was allowed to get near it because the structure wasn't stable. And so essentially they shut that whole area off. And unfortunately, my apartment was also down about a block away. Mm. So I wasn't able to get back to get any of my belongings or passport or, any of the things that you take for granted. So that happened on the Tuesday. On the Friday, my manager had called and said, all right, we're going to put together our disaster offsite. Would you come into the office in Jersey City and help us get ready for the markets about to open?
Because the markets were closed for almost a week, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, but, to the resilience of New Yorkers, I tell you.
Well, that's what the intended target was to devastate the financial markets in the heart of finance, right? And so that's the American way. We're not going to let them get back on and
Absolutely.
Get going. Yeah.
And, that's one of the, I guess, the great things that I learned from that terrible day is that, a lot of resilience and the power and the courage to make a choice on how to handle that situation really resides within us. Mm-hmm.
Now, riveting story. I'm sure everybody listening is totally riveted.
Yeah.
So we're probably people wondering, how does this all connect, right? So we have OPAL by Element, lifestyle and retirement living, and then you have a financial advisor that lived through this horrific experience. So what's before we go to break, your sort of basic philosophy that having had lived through this on what you say to people when they find out about this story? What do you say to your clients? And how do you? What's the perspective you give for them about maybe investing?
I think it comes down to your perspective on risk.
Yeah.
So many of us, especially when thinking about money, retirement, and choices, we're clouded by this fear that overhangs us, whether it's about uncertainty or something that happened to us in the past. There's so much emotional fog that clouds people's decisions around making choices, especially around money and retirement. Mm-hmm. And that experience helped shape the way that I look at risk, much more from a perspective of looking at both the positives and the negatives on an equal basis. Mm-hmm.
And in fact, you wrote a book, right?
I did,
And what's the book called?
The book Smart Risk.
Smart Risk. All right. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about your fathers and how they influenced your lifestyle and your life and your choices and why you're sitting here today talking to our audience. And we'll continue that conversation next on Boomer Life.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.